Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of rounds 3 and 4 of VSR Phoenix Season 9 here. As always, I am Regan Clark, and you join us here in Heusden, Zolder, Belgium, at a very, very nice little jewel of Western Europe, that being the Circuit Zolder. Founded in 1963, some 62 years ago, and comprised of just under 2.5 miles and 10 turns of FIA Grade 2. This is one fantastic little circuit indeed. And you will have to forgive me for a second, as it does appear that we have a little bit of trouble in regards to keeping our technology under control. And there we go. I think I was just fat-fingering the keyboard a little bit there. I accidentally brought up the silver standings. So, without further ado, we are almost immediately into Quali 1 of 2 today. Here, as we take a look at the calendar, rounds 3 and 4 of the championship after a very hectic set of results at rounds 1 and 2. We'll have a look into the division standings. The overall standings then will arrive during the formation process at the end of this day's qualifying. Of course, back into the 10:30 structure once again as we enter our second of 2 sprint race days before we hit round 5 at Watkins Glen. We're on board here with VSR Twiglet, VSR Smiler and Jonathan Curran in tow here, following on from Shawnee Mack and Indian Goat and ETE Giles as they make their way out of the pit lane. Let's get on board though with the car. Heading up the field on his way to the Kleiner chicane, it's Tommy in the number 66. Getting a look at those qualifying predictions today, it is looking very, very nice indeed. Just Boris and Fast Fanatical making another front row appearance, this time divided by 510 thousandths of a second. That's 5/10 and 100th there, to be more specific, between the front row. Then Tommy finds his way up to third, and he's only off from Fast Fanatical by about, looking at it here, I want to say about 2/10 and 13 thousandths of a second. So incredibly close margins, and that theme continues to carry on down into 4th and 5th there. You can see Oatsy and Chris have divided themselves by a single 100th of a second. You can see Indian Goat off of them by only a few hundredths in his own respect, by about 0.5 of a second we're looking at there. The bracket between 5th and 6th, then 0.04 of a second between himself and ETE Giles in 7th, VSR Grizz in 8th, the Blue Frog in 9th, and Jonathan Curran predicted at a top 10 start today. So if we take a look here, whilst we watch Tommy enter the first of the flying laps here in Heusden, Zolder, Belgium, without very much time to introduce you to this fantastic 2.5 miles of FIA Grade 2, nestled here in Heusden, Zolder, let's get on to the discussion of the division standings. Starting things off then, the Platinum standings, and Just Boris leads the charge by 14 points to Tommy in second place. Fast Fanatical putting in 63 points, puts himself third ahead of Skino and White Doctor for this round. We can see Skino is amongst the drivers on the grid right now here in Zolder, and is going to make for his first points debut with any hopes in either of these 2 races today at rounds 3 and 4. In the gold standings, Elite Cassie and ETE Giles are in dead heat here. They're joint first for the lead of the gold championship after rounds 1 and 2. Behind them, the Blue Frog only by 13 points. And then, actually, no, not by 13 points. That's a mistake there. That's by, looking at it here, doing the maths roughly in my head, that's about 7 points, actually, he's looking at there, between himself and the cars leading that joint first place. Regent behind them there by the looks of it, 11 points. Actually 21 points there, so the math's a little bit off there. For inside of the top 4, Indian Goat behind him by only 2 points. Then VSR Oatsy only behind Indian Goat by 1 point. VSR Chris rounds out the back of the gold standings. Into the silvers then, we see it's led by only 2 points between Twiglet and Grizz. Antion in third, Tommy Johansson 4th, and Funky Fish rounds out the top 5. Scott Milbank put in points there for his debut here to VSR Phoenix. VSR Pete, Space KC and Evil Smiler failing to secure points in rounds 1 and 2. Shawnee Mack leads the bronze charge ahead of Jonathan Curran. Jayco, Deadliest Dave and Dollar Up all failing to secure points on the charts. As we've just seen across the line then, the first of our times by Tommy, immediately usurped by Just Boris on the start of qualifying today. Fast Fanatical puts in the 3rd fastest time. Across the line there goes the Blue Frog. Then on his way to the line, the number 57 of ETE Giles. On his way right behind him, you can see as well the 44 of VSR Grizz. Neither of them set in any times there on that lap just gone. Next to the line on a currently valid time, the 15 of Jonathan Curran. Shawnee Mack was just in front of him there, as well as Smiler. Curran goes ahead of both of them and up to what was going to be 5th place, but then with the imminent arrival just gone there of VSR Chris, that pushes him down to 6th. Regent gets in between Twiglet and Curran there for 7th place on the track. He makes his first trip across the checkered line. Skino then on his first race in Season 9 makes his way to the line here with 6 minutes to go in qualifying. Across the line, 3rd fastest and ahead of VSR Chris and Fast Fanatical to be inside that top 5. Moreover, we'll start at the front of that second row. We didn't have him pitched anywhere, I believe, on that qualifying predictions chart. Just bringing that back up. Yes, he is a sort of dark horse for data as we hit the halfway mark of this ultra short qualifying session. Next to the line at the moment appears to be the number 88. That's VSR Dollar up across the line, but couldn't set a time on that first lap gone. The 66 is next on his way to the line. Can Tommy find 0.3 of a second here to get up to pole position and ahead of Just Boris on his way to the line? Here he goes and does, and puts it by 0.5 of an improvement to a 0.2 lead over Boris. Fanatical across the line. Now Boris on his way. Can he fight that back to pole? Not that time around. So a bit of a shift there in the power balance up on the top three. We'll see whether or not Skino can find his way up any further to where he is at the moment. Next to the line comes VSR Grizz. In front of him there is ETE Giles. Giles remains 13th. Grizz to the line goes to 6th on his first flying lap on the charts there. Right behind him as well came Indian Goat. And following VSR Antion there, Indian Goat up to 5th. VSR Antion down in 14th right now with 4.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. Skino on his way to the line here, out through the Jackie Xbox here, turn 10. You can see all manner of squirreling over the back end of the 696. Is that going to hamper his ability to get up and past Just Boris? Yes, it does. No improvement on that last lap just gone for the 696. On debut, still in 4th place, so definitely within his chances here to fight for a potential podium or even perhaps a race win if he can really surf some of the bedlam. Now, having a look back into those results from rounds 1 and 2, it was a clean sweep for Just Boris. That gives him that 100 points on the charts here to start off the championship strong, gunning for his second. Missed out on his opportunity last season. Doesn't look to be fooled again this time around. Just under 4 minutes left to go then. Let's catch on board with the next car to the line. It's the 66, our current pole sitter of Tommy. Now, we've seen precisely what he's capable of at a track like Zolder back in the GT3 classes of seasons gone by. So in his debut for Porsche Cups at Zolder, this is quite a performance to remember, but one especially so following on his trails, and now up and ahead of him is Just Boris. Puts it by half a second ahead of Tommy. That is not to take away from the achievement he's already put on the table there to put himself on the front row. He'll be first in line to come and have a go at a charge for first place off of Just Boris when we go racing in a few minutes' time. 3 minutes, 20 seconds left to go then, and we are far from done here in qualifying. Next to the line goes Shawnee Mack. Couldn't improve from 15th at the moment. The 28 crosses the line onto another set of flying laps. The number 96 there on his way to the line. That's VSR Twiglet, now up to 8th on the last lap just gone there. Puts himself up and ahead of Regent and Grizz inside of that top 10. 3 minutes to go. You can see the clock is ticking and ticking fast here. Here comes Skino to the line. He was pushed out of the top 4 by ETE Giles. Can't recuperate on the losses there. Needs to find a little over 1/10 of a second. 1/10 at 100th he needs to put himself level with the 57, now in 4th place. Number 6 just crossed the line. That's VSR Oatsy now leapfrogging Twiglet up to 8th place. Twiglet down to 9th. Those two separated by 43 thousandths of a second. So that is incredibly small gaps we're seeing inside of the top 10 already at play here. And this is one of 2 qualifying sessions today in what look to be favourable conditions. 21 degrees on track, 18 ambient, and optimum conditions throughout today's quali session. Will that be reflected in the race later on? Only time will tell. We're going to catch on board next here with the 32 here. This is VSR Smiler. We also wanted to catch on board with the 52 of Fast Fanatical. Just crossed the line, remains in 3rd for now. Boris is in the pits, so with about 2 minutes left to go, is there going to be the chance for him to come back out on track, or is he content and realizing that maybe this time is a little too hard for the others to beat? He's going to wait from the pit lane to see if anyone dares to come and have a go, if they think they're fast enough. You can see a very late join by Elite Cassie, so that's going to put him out of qualifying for today. He's just not going to have enough time to put a time on the charts. He'll be starting from 18th. We've just seen a shift there for the number 420 there. I believe it to be Regent. Whereabouts did he just go? Yes, to 4th. So that is quite a shove. As we see off on the track there was VSR Chris out through Ernst Corner, turn 1. So real trouble for the 28. Already another shift as Skino crosses the line, now to 3rd ahead of Fast Fanatical and Regent, pushing Regent to the back of the top 5 where he was looking at the moment at a top 2 row start. Number 9 next to the line as well. Indian Goat wowed expectations earlier on in today's session by putting himself up into 5th. Can't find it on this lap just gone. Bear in mind the margins there for even one improvement are so fine in play here. So you're looking at about 75 thousandths of a second between himself and the car up in 8th place. That being the Blue Frog on his way down towards turn 10. So a lot to break down there. Not a lot of time to do it. The 61, he's warming himself up for one more run around Zolder before the end of today's qualifying session. We can see already bringing it back into the pits for the end of quali today, Tommy and Skino. Tommy having fought Skino back then to 3rd place. Skino will start on the top 2 rows of today's race. On debut to Season 9, this has been a long hiatus for Skino, and we've seen his talents up in GT3. What can he do then with the Porsche 992? Now, of course, to remind you of some of the technical data for the Porsche 992, of course, this specific model you see, the 992 GT3, was introduced in 2021. Features a 4-litre Porsche MA 2.23 naturally aspirated flat-6 engine, making 510 metric horsepower. So it is quite a brute. One of the main caveats then of the Porsche Cup class, no traction control. So that's going to be a real pressing factor for our drivers today, as it was back in the opening 2 rounds at Brands Hatch. Across the line then, Otzi in 10th. At the end of Quali 1 today, we see Indian Goat on his way to the line. Number 9 in 9th. Can he break the 9th place curse? Yes, he is, because he's up to 8th there and ahead of the Blue Frog, who himself currently on his way down towards Boulderberg-Harschwald-Bocht. Number 52 is on his way to the line so far. Fanatical is still in play here. It shows on the map that he was invalidated. Let's see if that's the truth. Needs 2 tenths, 700ths and 3 thousandths to beat pole position. On his way to the line. Can't find it there, sadly. He'll be starting from that front row. If we catch on board here with the Blue Frog right at the trailing end. So we saw him warm up for this lap. Let's see what it can do for him right at the end of Quali 1 today. Is he up into 8th? No, sadly in 9th at the end of qualifying 1. Here comes VSR Antion on his way to the line. From 13th place, needs to find about 2 tenths of a second for 12th as he gets to the line. Does he do so? Sadly, also seems to be the case of more plateauing at the end of qualifying. Pangs of frustration for him there. We're about to head into round 3 of the championship, and we'll be following very closely in its footsteps for another 10-minute qualifying and another 30-minute race for round 4. So don't go anywhere. We're just getting started here at the end of Quali 1. It's just Boris on pole position. A full grid rundown in a moment's time. So this is shaping up to be just as interesting an opening set of rounds as we saw back in Brands Hatch, as Zolder, all the way back when it was being used as a double sprint round in GT3, gave us very rich racing indeed, rife with action and rife with drama. Now throw in the extra elements of these cars being so incredibly hard to control from the get-go. It's definitely going to make this one of the more fascinating races to see today. And looking back onto that calendar, of course, we'll be following these 2 rounds up for the first of our 60-minute endurance class races, if you can call it that, at round 5 of the championship at Watkins Glen in Schuyler County, New York State, then heading straight back into the sprints for Valencia and Donington through round 6 through 9. Then back to Imola on that standard format for round 10, then Zandvoort, then Alton Park, then Silverstone, then Hungary, to bring us to the end of a record-high 17-round championship here in Season 9. And so we covered the division standings, but let's get a look at the overall standings. Just Boris, of course, with that 100 points puts him in the lead of this championship at the moment. Tommy in second with 86 points, a joint 3rd place between Elite Cassie and ETE Giles. They put themselves right now with 73 points apiece. The Blue Frog in 5th, Fast Fanatical in 6th, only by 3 points away, mind you. Twiglet in 7th. In 8th place, VSR Grizz with 54 points. So still incredibly close margins we're talking about here towards the back of the top 10. VSR Anti on 9th, rounding out the top 10 is Regent with 45 points. As you can see, 9th and 10th there, one of the closest of all. 1 point dividing it in the grand scheme of things in the overall standings. Let's get on to the discussion of the grid. 1 of 2 today. After the end of qualifying 1, Just Boris heads up pole position. Alongside him on that front row will be Fast Fanatical. Then on the second row, Tommy, and Skino on debut to Season 9 makes his way to 4th position. He's up and ahead of Regent and Giles for an incredibly competitive 3rd row as well. And that complements almost perfectly the dichotomies going on for the 2nd and 1st rows ahead. Behind them, VSR Chris and Indian Goat 7th and 8th. The Blue Frog in 9th and VSR Otzi rounds out our top 10. Twiglet in 11th with Grizz in 12th. Anti on 13th and Smiler in 14th. Rounding out the top 15, Jonathan Curran in the number 15. So rather well placed there. The 15 in 15th. Shawnee Mack in 16th with VSR Dollar up in 17th. And Elite Cassie misses qualifying one and will start from 18th and last. So that's going to be quite the challenge for him today in the 98. Now he knows the position he's got in the championship. He is joint third with Giles overall. And then looking into that gold category as well, it is a joint first in division. So there's a lot riding on the line here with Giles starting from 6th in this race and Cassie starting all the way down in 18th. There is going to be quite the push here from the Dutch talent to put himself back up in good point scoring positions. With about a minute then left to go. We had quite the interesting last couple of streams, and it did bring to my mind the discussion of how powerful actually third place can sometimes be, especially when you know the car heading up the field has got a fantastic starting run. And we know Just Boris, when the lights go green and we go racing, is no slouch by any stretch of the imagination. He has definitely got the reflexes, unlike anything I've ever seen on this grid here. He has some of the best starts that we've seen week in, week out. The question therein, with a grid as competitive as this, we've seen him handle the pressure in GT3. These Porsche Cups, they can smell fear. And will they be smelling anything off of the 999 today? Only time will tell us different. So we're on board with a 30-second warning given. The drivers will be firing their engines up. We'll be getting away for the start of the formation lap here on board with the pole sitter. And for, I believe, the third time running, if memory does serve correctly here, Just Boris. Taking us away then in his 999. Any second now. See the entire grid behind him there. 18 cars and also 9 either side of it for the start of round 3. Pulling away then for the start of the formation lap. The 999 from the 52. And it also gives us the opportunity to give you a rundown tour here of the Circuit Zolder, already heading down into a very sharp left-hander here at turn 1 at Erst corner. That's complemented by an equally sharp, almost parabolic right hand, almost open hairpin style corner, because you follow the momentum all the way out through turn 2 here at Sturmwachbocht into Kanalbocht at turn 3, the declining gradient. It opens up to give drivers a much better run. This is one of the more iconic sites here overlooking the wind farm here in Heusden Zolder. Definitely one of the most iconic parts of Circuit Zolder is its position amongst a very sizable renewable energy farm. On its way now down through Lucien Bianchi Bocht, another sharp right-hander. Well, now we've seen drama over the years at this section of the track, especially so for the driver now leading this session. All the way back in his time in GT3, he had quite a few issues here at Zolder. He seems in more recent times to have broken the curse placed upon it all the way so long ago. Heading down into the Kleiner chicane then, one of you can make the argument 4 chicanes technically, but let's say realistically 3 chicanes, and we'll explain why in a moment. Up through the Kleiner chicane, very easy for the car to get airborne, as you saw there, region in the background, that dark blue and yellow having already a little bit of a bounce there on the left-hand curb, bringing us through Butte Curve at turn 6. Now, this whole section coming up, this is Terlemanbocht, now named for the reason that this track was originally opened as the Circuit Terleman back in its infancy. And this entire section, including that chicane part that we just entered through here, and these right-hand curves, are all classified as constituting just turn 7. So that's what gives this track such a deceptively low corner count, but this is just as complex, if not more so, than tracks of its size and caliber. Heading down towards Bolderberg-Harschbeldbocht, a corner I do not get bored of saying, and that's turn 8 with a monstrously long name. And now this is what I'm talking about here. This is why there's technically 4, as this is a chicane. Yes, a very shallow chicane by comparison. This is the Jochen Rindbocht at turn 9. To bring us then into a much sharper chicane, almost reminiscent of Nürburgring's NGK chicane coming up here, and that's the Jackie X-Bocht at turn 10. There are alternate layouts here of Zolder that allow that to be run a lot shallower If we take a look, you can see that road jutting out to the left there, but that's more or less used in this day and age as the emergency road. So we're on board with Just Boris after our little rundown tour here, the circuit Zolder, as we line up 9 cars apiece either side of it here for the start of round 3 of VSR Phoenix Season 9. On our run to the line here, leading from pole position, will be Just Boris, Fast and Fanatical in tow here for the start of round 3. Without further ado, here in Zolder for the first of 2 races today, we are green and racing here at the circuit Zolder. And where I had said before, Boris is normally known for great race starts. I was not expecting then the game of the 52. I must severely apologise to Fast Fanatical. I was not familiar with your game, and that start was brilliant there by the 52. Same story for the 66 and the 696. You can see side by side was Regent and Indian Goat in the background there as well for control of 5th. Already a great start then by the 999, leading ahead of the 52, the 66, right on his tail, and same story for the rest of the pack here, as we can see already the 999 starting to force open a bit of a gap here to the rest of the field. Let's get on board with Indian Goat. He's got a very clear line of sight of Regent and Skino in front of him, but he overcooked his brakes, but he might just have it on the inside. It's contact between himself and Regent. Oh, that definitely got a little bit ugly there. Let's get a look at that on the replays. Now, this was heading down into the Kleiner chicane. We're going to try and catch on board with some of the drivers on the rest of the grid here. You can see overdid his brakes and just had to commit to the move and snipped there across the back end of the number 420. That has gone rather sour for Indian Goat and Regent. We're on board with Skino now in a very stable 4th position, as he's got quite a bit of breathing space between himself and the car behind him. The 1.6 second gap now opening up between himself and the Blue Frog in 5th. So quite an interesting start to go by here in Zolder. You can see how close the rest of the grid is behind him. We can see just looking up ahead of Skino, a little bit of desync here. Now that's not grand, and hopefully that does sort itself out. It's always a bit jarring to see that, and I think it has sorted itself out. This is currently what is the state of affairs here for a potential fight of 2nd place, that being between Fast Fanatical in the 52. In front of us here, we're on board with the 66, the yellow and white of Tommy, but I want to get a look further down the road as things are massively closing in. You can see Elite Cassie now having made his way silently to the top 10. Started 18th, is now up 8 positions from the race start. We see here from Oatsy's point of view, he was sliding his way out of Kanalbocht. Actually out through Sturmwacht, then to Kanalbocht, then through Lucien Bianchi. You can see he's actually almost leveraging some of that oversteer. Rally-esque, dare I say, from the number 98 on his way to the Kleiner chicane. Now is up to 10th. Oatsy down in 11th. I want to go look at the battle behind them, though, because things are hotting up between what appears to be, now my memory does not deceive me here. Let's see if we can get a look at one of at least 3 cars in the mix here. Antion v Grizz and Jonathan Curran, all of them up an extra position there, much to the chagrin of Regent. You can see backing up the pack now behind VSR Twiglet. Actually, VSR Dollar up there, my mistake. Off in the background, though, as we've just seen dust kicked up and the Audi Sport sign sent into orbit there was Elite Cassie. Now drops position to 11th. Oatsy back up to the top 10. So we're on board with Antion, as he's got a very clear line of sight of a careening 98. Something is amiss after Turleman for Elite Cassie. A lot of sun glare here. Not very easy for drivers to get a good view of things down into turn 10. We're on board at the moment with Antion. Suddenly, things have become rather interesting at the back of the top 10 here for the number 1. Right behind him, chasing him for 12th position right now is VSR Grizz. I'd say functionally we are looking at that battle for 12th place at the moment, whether we like to or not, whether he likes to or not. Antion is in a very, very tough position here. He knows there is ample opportunities up ahead. The 98 and the number 6 looks to go side by side. A switchback in the making perhaps here for Elite Cassie, side by side through Kanalbot. Can he make that stick up through Lucien Bianchi? No, because going back up ahead is the number 6. He's going for the more aggressive line, but I think he may have just gone a little too wide for his own liking. Does trim a lot of momentum. Meanwhile, looking behind from Antion's point of view, whilst he's got front row tickets to the fight of the top 10, he's got the number 44 breathing down his neck. Oh, it's contact, a bump into the Kleiner chicane. He has to run off. That's gone quite ugly there between Antion and Grizz, but it seems to have sorted itself out. No current indication of a penalty there, not that there should be for the number 1. Totally out of his realm of control into Turleman blocked. Now we are potentially looking here at Antion becoming part of that fight for 11th. He's still defending for 12th place as we speak. Meanwhile, up the order, things are getting closer and closer for the 52. and the 66. So we will be getting on board with Fast Fanatical and Tommy in a moment's time, but we're just under 5 minutes. We're approaching that 5-minute mark as we speak into this race, and already things have been mighty interesting here at the Circuit Zolder. Not a dull moment at a track as this, at a track such as this, I should say. Pardon my somehow bizarre lack of understanding of my own language. Oh, it's contact between Otzi and Cassie. That has gone horribly, horribly wrong. Let's see if we can quickly catch that on the replays as well. I think it might have been too late. So going up in through Jackie X turn, so turn 10. Meanwhile, we were focusing on the background there. The number 88 was in trouble. That was Dollar Up, but there, yes. Ooh, it didn't look particularly grand, did it, there for Cassie? I mean, whether or not he was given the space or otherwise, whether or not he was getting a little too ambitious, he was right at the back end there with very little wiggle room, and ultimately turned out the number 6. That's not gone well. We did have momentary yellow flags for the number 88. That was VSR Dollar Up, had an issue down at Boulderberg Harshbell boxed, and then the subsequent Jochen Rindt box at turn 9. Just checking here with Skino, because he's got front row tickets here. He's got a season ticket to seeing one of the greatest fights on this grid. Fast Fanatical v Tommy could be very quickly underway here. You see Cassie is up in the top 10, but at what cost, I imagine the 98 is thinking as we pass the 5-minute mark of today's race. So Boris leads by 2.2 seconds. Right behind them appears to be a very, very lively battle going on and potentially about to go nuclear between Fast Fanatical and Tommy. Bear in mind, let's not count out Skino from this. He's in 4th and not too far away himself. The Blue Frog in 5th. ETE Giles in hot pursuit in 6th. So too is the number 28 of VSR Chris. Indian Goat in 8th. VSR Twiglet in 9th. And Elite Cassie into the top 10. VSR Antion in 11th. Grizz in 12th. Jonathan Curran in 13th, up 2 positions from race start. Shawnee Mack in 14th. VSR Smiler in 15th. Regent in 16th. Much frustration there for the 420. VSR Otzi, similar boat here. Number 6 down to 17th. VSR Dollar Up in 18th in the 88. So let's see if we can catch on board with what's going on in this fight for second. Now we're on board the attacking point of view here. We're on board with Tommy in the 66. Gotta say, for a 30-minute race, this has ticked by remarkably slowly, because you can only really sit here and hold your breath and hope the drivers don't come together. Out through tournament, you can see this is where Boris is making the bulk of his time up now. He's 2.4 seconds up the field from Tommy. That's 2 seconds at the moment between himself and Fast Fanatical. Out through turn 9 we go then. Things starting to perhaps simmer down just as we've caught them here. Now, they were very, very close to one another at one point. Whether or not it's Tommy just backing off to give himself a little bit of breathing space, maybe to try and learn off of the line of the 52 and use it to his advantage. But he is stuck just hovering around the number 52 with very little opportunity to strike for a move there. He was the faster of the two by 120 thousandths of a second, 125 thousandths of a second, so 1/10, 200ths and 5 thousandths to be specific in that last lap just gone. In layman's, a little over a 10th. Out through Canal Box we go, then you can see that Fast Fanatical has just got that line so perfectly nailed in. He's able to pull so much time on the 66. He's bleeding, he's hemorrhaging time here in Sector 1. Looking further down the grid, as we can see very close action right now for Regent and Shawnee Mack. Regent now up to 14th, up and ahead of Shawnee Mack, and the last time we saw them it was the other way round. Sliding his way around the track at the moment appears to be VSR Smiler in the 32 as well. So taking a look at where our next fights could be coming from, look no further than these two. The 57, that magenta and black there, the Porsche of ETE Giles. Right behind him, the silver and blue of VSR Chris. Let's not count out Indian Goat neither as well. He's in the number 9, the purple Porsche, just in the background there of this two-car fight. 0.7 of a second. Now, it seems to be a bit of a curse every time we catch on board with a close fight. It starts to open up, so it's a little bit of a bizarre one here. Don't really know if you could call that commentator's curse or if it's just something else entirely. Normally, commentator's curse is for a bit more the logical extremes. It's when you say good things about a driver and then he spins out, and that's actually happened several times before in this series, so I'm going to stop talking about that before I end up cursing someone. So nearly 10 minutes into race 1 today, and things have simmered down just a touch from where things were in the opening 5. Bottom line right now, Boris looking for a hat-trick of victories in this championship, having won both times out in Brands Hatch. Utter domination back in the UK. Now as we head across the channel and into the Benelux region here in Belgium, he looks to be doing all to the same here. A hat-trick and perhaps 4 in a row. Who knows? Only time will tell different. 20 minutes left to go then in race 1. So as I mentioned before, in this fight between Giles and Chris, I said not to count out Indian Goat, and for this reason alone as well, because Indian Goat in the number 9 has drawn them in to now within a second, so we could be seeing a 3-car battle in the near future for 6th place. So 10 minutes into the session, not much in the way of it has changed here. The top 4 remains the same. Boris, Fanatical, Tommy, who's very close now. We will be checking in with those two in a moment's time, and Skino. Blue Frog in 5th, Giles 6th, Chris 7th, Indian Goat 8th, Twiglet 9th, and Antion in the top 10. Now up and ahead of Elite Cassie, so that'll be one to watch as well. Let's quickly catch on board, though, with the first of our 2 fights to observe, that being between 3rd and 2nd. Tommy was closer than ever when we last checked in with these two on their way through Tournament. Now on the exit of turn 10. Just him hovering around the back end of the 52. He's just bleeding time away, even though he's on net average faster per lap. He's just struggling to find position around him as we speak. Whether or not he's just sizing the 52 up for one very, very, very insane lunge, perhaps, let's say, or ambitious lunge. Could be another thing entirely. On their exit of turn 3, on their way to turn 4, he's now dropped back to 0.4 of a second. So let's get a look on with what's going on inside the top 10. Now, we saw things get a little bit hairy between the cars currently inheriting 9th and 10th position. That's Twiglet and Cassie. So let's catch on board with these two. Actually, it was more relevantly Cassie and Antion, not Twiglet. He's 2.5 seconds up the road there. So Cassie now retaking 10th position. Antion down to 11th, Grizz right behind him. There is still very much to be said about this fight for the last of the top 10. Bear in mind, Cassie's up 8 positions here. He's had to carve his way through the crowd, missing out on qualifying, and he misses out on the chicane as well. The Kleiner chicane gets cut there by the number 98. Behind them, you can see the 15 and the 420. That's Jonathan Curran and Regent getting into arms for position, but up the inside, dare I say it, goes. That's VSR. Antion did go for it, but Cassie eventually had to cut the chicane there. That was definitely something to be said down at Turleman. I've not seen many drivers dare to attempt it, but he did go for it. And I think it was, yeah, just out past that second part, there was no suggestion of there ever being room left for Cassie. Hence why he had to cut the chicane. But if I were in Antion's position, I would be seeing red here. And in the meantime, we have run into a momentary yellow flag, and that was for the 44. That has since cleared back into green flags. Serious trouble out through Boulderberg Harshveld box for VSR Grizz. He now drops to 14th. It promotes these two up to the fight for 12th. A big snap of oversteer there for the number 420 of Regent on his way to lap 8. So we're only a few minutes out from the midway mark of this race. The number 6 is into the pits at the moment. That's VSR Otzi. And potentially out of today's race. Have more to comment on as it rolls in. The number 6 remains in the pit lane for the time being. Serious damage was on the number 6 last time we saw it when we were checking in through the drivers. Now we're back on board with a fight that seems to be going on from the word go here in race 1. That's between 2nd and 3rd, Fast Fanatical and Tommy. Now this is definitely the closest we've ever seen it. We've said it a few times before, but this has never been truer. Out through Turleman on their way to Boulderberg Harshveld box at turn 8. This could get juicy here because this is one of few major attacking spots here in Zolder, but just too far away to stage a move. At the start of the corner was the 66, but on the exit has got things tucked in nice, neat and tidy. Out through the Ockenrin box at turn 9, now rocketing down towards turn 10. 0.4 of a second there between the 52 and the 66. Now, he decided in the sign-ups page, or whether or not it was a typo to the data they sent me, that he was going to sign up as Fast Fanatical. He has since changed back to the more iconic Fast Fanatical. There is the number 52, Fast Fanatical, holding on to second place. He has held on to it with an iron vice over the course of the last 15 minutes. As we approach the halfway mark of the race, he has not let up once here in the face of it. Is going to try his very, very hardest to take home a front row finish, because up the field and still disappearing, that gap is continuing to grow. Boris is slowly vanishing from the discussion of being challenged for a race lead. It would take something seriously untoward to put the 999 out of commission here with 15.5 minutes to spare at round 3 of the championship. It's not looking particularly grand here for second place, because he's definitely had to pick his fights where he can. Really, the only fight he could pick was defending. Boris has just had supreme pace over the course of this race. I've seen people describe him as not human. Now, I don't know whether or not that was endearment in saying that he's got alien pace, or whether it was an insult because of classic British animosity. But I dare not question. It's not my position as media to psychoanalyze. Out through turn 9 we go then. Fast Fanatical and Tommy separated by 0.3 of a second, getting closer and closer and closer to the opportunity of a side-by-side fight in the near future. As we hit the halfway mark of the race, let's see where things currently stand. We can see things definitely livening up towards the back of that field, so we will be catching on board with those drivers in a moment's time. Leading this charge then at the halfway mark of round 3 of the championship, just Boris by nearly 3.5 seconds. It says 2.9 there on the last checkpoint. It was 3.5 when we were checking with the drivers just a moment ago. Tommy in third, but we're watching here with Fast Fanatical in second. It has been incredibly close between these two over the course of the first half of the race. Skino maintains a very calm and careful 4th place. He's looking to take home solid points here in his first round of season 9. In 5th then, and up quite a few positions from the start, the Blue Frog capitalised on mistakes ahead of him to put himself in a top 5 position, and by quite a ways there to ETE Giles, himself ahead of VSR Chris. Indian Goat in 8th, Elite Cassie in 9th has clawed back 9 positions from the race start then to put himself inside the top 10. He's only 3 positions out from his Gold Championship rival at the moment. Those two joint on points. Rounding out the back of that top 10 then, VSR Twiglet ahead of VSR Antion in 11th. Region in 12th has definitely fought back from a less than ideal start. Right with him at the moment is Jonathan Curran in 13th. He himself is up 2 positions from the race start. He's in 13th now, where he started 15th. VSR Grizz in 14th and Shawnee Mack in 15th. VSR Smiler in 16th, Dollar Up in 17th, and Oatsy in the pit lane in 18th. That could be a DNF. I'm not entirely sure. We've yet to get confirmation of the like there out to the number 6. But considering he's been in the pit lanes for this long, it's even that the damage we saw on the number 6 is a lot more dire than what originally appeared to us. Or it is him throwing the towel in. Which I must say, for his debut into gold, it has not been a particularly graceful one. He fought quite diligently for the Silver Championship in Season 8, and this has definitely been perhaps one step too big for him into gold. But only time will tell us different. So we cut away from that fight for second. So we now want to take a look towards the back of that top 10. Now, things have been incredibly lively in this grid so far, and we can see elevating up to a fight for 7th now. VSR Chris versus Indian Goat, the number 28, leading that 2-car fight in the silver and almost darkish blue there. I want to say dark blue, maybe bordering on a bit of a lavender colour from the current lighting. And then behind him, the royal purple number 9 of Indian Goat in pursuit down to the Kleiner chicane. So we'll see if we can catch on board with the attacking of 2 here on our way out of the Kleiner chicane. This is in that fight for 7th. See, following in the number 9's point of view down through tournament, you can see just how tight this area is. And that's what really left me quite surprised to see any amount of side-by-side action earlier on in the race. Now, that was between Antion and Cassie. I believe we still do have that incident to hand, so we'll check that out in just a second here. We're still on board with the number 9. Now, let's see if that was on the most recent of our instant replays. Yes, so it was side-by-side action, and there you can see the second part of it. There was just absolutely no chance he was going to be able to hold on to his position on track. And moreover, just any position on track for that matter, hence why he cut the chicane. So it's probably why not a lot of drivers ever try that. But in Porsche Cups, you've got to be ambitious. So down through turn 1, then to turn 2. He's definitely shed away some time there to Chris. It was previously hovering around 0.4, 0.3 of a second. It's since doubled back up to 0.6. And he's really struggling out through those first 4 corners here. So we hit Lucien Bianchi at turn 4. something is just not lining up between the front and rear axle on that number 9. He's dropping time there through sector 1. It's in the slower speed sections he's able to reel Chris back in. We do have yellow flags. It's for the number 15, Jonathan Curran, in trouble. Let's see if we can catch on board with him here. This is on the exit of Ernst Corner. There's the number 15 of Curran. Down through turn 2 he goes. So it doesn't appear to be any major damage, so one could definitely suggest that... Oh, never mind. That's just appeared to me now. That is, yeah, definitely a trip to a wall there. He's had a bit of a run-in with the barriers on the left-hand side out of Ernst Corner. That could have been a half spin. That could have been contact. Sadly, we don't have the data to hand at the moment. Back onto that fight for second as we pick back up with the 52 and the 66 here. And they've still been going at it. 20 minutes in, not an ounce of momentum has been lost between these two in their endeavours for second place. They've definitely lost time out to the lead of the race, though. Boris putting in 130s, whereas these two are clocking in high 131s. Night and day difference on that front row. So down through turn 2 at Sternwacht, then to Canal. And again, this is the thing we've seen before. Fast Fanatic just has such a great understanding of that first sector's line that he's able to exploit every available inch of the track. And it's what's giving him that divide between himself and Tommy. Now, we must consider other factors at play as well, such as the fact he's been sticking around in the rear of that 52 for the entirety of this race. His tyres are going to be a little bit hotter. His aero is going to be a little bit less efficient. You are seeing that there's very little stress for the 52 in through Sector 1. Now as we hit Sector 2, it's the same story. He's just at a leisurely pace on his way through Turn 7. He's not got a lot to worry about here, knowing getting side by side is once in a blue moon here, but this is where it could happen. On the exit of Turn 7, on his way to Turn 8, at Bolderberg Harspelbach, he did try for it, tried to fake him out. The 52 defends for the inside a little bit there, but still has the line necessary to rock it out through Turn 9. So this is just perfect defensive tactical masterclass from the 52. He's covered every base, he's covered every inch of the track. No matter where you put yourself, I will put myself where you can't be, says the 52. The 66 with another stab of oversteer, starting to show a little bit of signs of fatigue there. Tommy running into trouble. Having a look around then, we see the defending point of view, but I want to get a look further down the road as we see things continue to close up right now. This time for ETE Giles. VSR Chris, I should say, is in pursuit of him. And then in almost equal gaps from one another there is the 57, the 28 and the 9 of ETE Giles, VSR Chris and Indian Goat. Out through Canal. Then to Lucien Bianchi. Now, I think a lot of people's major gripe with Zolder is that despite the fact that it is a very fun track to chase each other on, it is a track that provides very few opportunities to actually get side by side and solidify an overtake. And as we can see there, I think most of the overtakes you'll be seeing today are going to come at the result of some kind of human error. Luckily for Giles, he was just far enough ahead to not ruffle any feathers of the 28 and the 9 behind him, but he has brought himself very close in, and it's this huge crunch zone up through Tournament, this whole turn 7 complex that brings drivers closer together for what I would definitely say is one of only a few, I'd say probably 1 or 2 overtaking opportunities is getting side by side down here at turn 8, but it does not come without incredible risk to the driver. We did have a yellow flag out for the 32. So see if we can catch on board here with the 32 to see what the trouble may be. That's for VSR Smiler we're looking for. He did have some trouble out through turn 4. And we just caught him there into the wall at the Kleiner chicane. What on earth has gone on for VSR Smiler? He has been disastrous today for the 32. That is one thing after another, and I think that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. So as we were scrolling around, we could see there was the 32, ran into even more trouble. That's just a bit, I think, a bit oversteer on his way into turn 5. That's just not gone well for him. We are back into green flag conditions then, but the 32 is in worsening condition as he exits Turleman. Skino a long way away now from this fight for second place. You can see, having run off the road there, the 88 holds the right-hand side of the track and gets back on there And I think that could have actually been a bit of oversteer for him. Oh, it has shown white flags, but no yellow flags there. So fortunately for the drivers, no real issues. For the 66, we did see running off through the chicane, though. That was Tommy, and he's lost a lot of time there to the car up in second in the 52. That was Fast Fanatical. It has now gained quite a lot of time. We're looking back here, now up into the fight for the top 10. Twiglet v Region. Region has been on a fantastic comeback drive after that early doors incident that he found himself the victim of earlier on in today's race. That was between himself and Indian Goat down at turn 5 at the Kleiner chicane. Now through Turleman, he's up into the top 10, back into the good solid point scoring positions of the top 10. But he's definitely smelling blood in the water, mostly on that number 9, so we will be hunting him down through next qualifying session coming and into that second race. Do expect, if these two start anywhere near one another, for there to be a little bit of white knuckle racing in store coming into race 2 today. With 5 minutes left to go then in race 1, as the sun is starting to set here beyond the horizon in Heusden, Zolder, Belgium. Could that indicate then that a night race is on its way? We've seen the last couple of times actually that VSR has run these double stint races. Now this was back when it was only a semi-occasional sport configuration for the last couple of seasons. It was maybe one day race, one night race. Zolder was actually one of the best proof of concept for this, as it was one day race and one night race. We do have a yellow flag, and it is for the number 9 and the number 28. So there has been some kind of trouble between Indian Goat and VSR Chris. Elite Cassie now gets up between the pair of them. The 28 is still in trouble, though. We're on board with Region. He picks up from where these two left off. There was an incident down at Lucien Bianchi corner. That's turn 4 on track. We are back into green flags then, out through the Kleiner chicane. Now I want to try and get a scope of the damage here between the two cars in question. So let's see if we can go and find it. First with Indian Goat. Now you can see minor damage over the nose of the number 9. Can't see too much in terms of rear damage, so we are going to try and catch with Chris and see what is the tally of damage for Chris. So we scroll around the field here. Menu navigation is not always the greatest here in ACC because it doesn't go off of position on track. It goes off of who joined the session in what order. So now on board with VSR Chris. So we've seen one side of that incident at turn 4. Let's see if we can tally up the damage on the other. I can see maybe a few scratches, a few dings there over the rear. I don't know if my eyes are deceiving me. It's definitely over the right-hand side, so I can start to piece together maybe what has gone on there. Those two have gone side by side, front to rear, and someone has been turned around, and it's relayed onto both of them there with no traction control, no ability to save the car once it's in a halfway spin. So yes, you can see that is noticeable damage over the right-hand side skirts for the number 28. So that could perhaps give us at least a clue as to what's gone on there. Damage, bear in mind, over the left. That's the front left, actually, of Indian Goat. So yes, I think what we're seeing here is a very classic case there, side by side, down into Lucien Bianchi. Indian Goat's trailing on Chris. He's tried to go up along the rear axle, and he's clashed with the number 28. And the both of them have gone into the gravel off of Lucien Bianchi. I really hope I'm correct on that, because that is some proper detective work, some LA noir stuff there. I really hope I'm right with that. Otherwise, it just look a bit mental, really. Antion v Grizz, then, the next fight on the field in 12th. As we drop into the final couple of minutes of today's race. 1 of 2, so don't go anywhere. Here at the conclusion of race 1, would be straight back in to qualifying and then race 2 here in Zolder before we close out today's broadcast. Out through Turleman. As we look here, as we drop into the final minutes of today's race, things have started to close back up between Fast Fanatical and Tommy. The pair of them reunited for one perhaps last dash here for second. They're currently 1.1 seconds from one another. Now, we were watching further down the line here for a very close fight, and we've just seen perhaps the axis point of it is up the inside at turn 10. Goes VSR Grizz. Now he's to the outside on the exit of Jackie Ixt. It's contact between himself and the 01. That's gone nasty very quickly, and he's slammed across the track. Oh, that's, you can see it was a passenger past the point he got onto the grass. So he was up the inside, fair game, yes, and there I think maybe is where not a lot of space has been left, because past that apex he is still trying to turn the car in, but he's just not got any left, any grip left to give, sorry, I should say. And let's just get a look at that again, because it's there. So through the first part of turn 10, he's got him there. Then it's contact. He goes up onto the grass, and that's obscured by the timing charts there. But you can see he's got on the throttle, and the car's just pivoted in. And there's nothing he could have done. He was on the brakes by the time he got hit, and that's the end of that. So for Antion, he's in 12th. Grizz is down to 13th. So let's get a look on board with where the nearest fight on track should be coming from. And it's back into the swing of things then for third and second. Fast Fanatical v Tommy seems to be our closing fight of the day. We're on to the final lap then for the 999. So we'll be catching on board with Just Boris in a moment's time. As without further ado, so it appears on this lap, unless anything can stand in his way now, he looks to be taking home a hat-trick of victories to kick off Season 9, winning in round 3. But we'll catch more on that in a moment's time. Taking a look around the field because he Regent trying to get up and around Dollar up on his pursuit of VSR Chris. He's really not too far away there. You can see pangs of frustration for the 420, held up by the 88 out through turn 10. Looking around the field, where could be the nearest fight to us? I think it really was the proper pivoting point of it was those two fights we just saw from before. Let's see if we can catch on board here with VSR Chris just quickly before the line to see. So that's now out 1.8 seconds. So Regent is going to be absolutely furious with Dollar up after the shenanigans there down at turn 10. He tried to get him out of the way and ended up giving himself a very nasty fright over the rear axle. A little stab of oversteer. That's all but solidified it at the moment. We'll catch up with those two when we get to the checkered flag. But without further ado, let's see if we can go and catch on board with the man leading the charge of this race here, because we haven't got much time left in it. Heading down towards turn 10 on the final lap of this race here. Just Boris hits the checkered flag and he takes home 3 race wins in a row then. What a start to the season he's had. He wins in round 3. To the line then. Fast Fanatical chased all the way to the line. It's down to the wire there. 0.3 of a second between himself and Tommy. Tommy in third. Fast Fanatical in second. Skino on debut for the Platinum category makes 4th place. Rounding out the top 5 then, fighting through the field is the Blue Frog. ETE Giles in pursuit there for 6th. Cassie, having fought from 18th, makes 11 positions there. A very easy candidate for driver of the day. In round 3, he finishes in 7th. Indian Goat on his way to the line for 8th and ahead of VSR Chris, much to the chagrin of the 28 there, as we start to piece together what happened earlier for those two down at turn 4. He finishes in 9th. Rounding out the top 10, having fought things back then, is Regent for 10th. And a little bit of contact between himself and Dollar up there. Or was he brake testing? Lord only knows. Twiglet in 11th. Antion on his way to the line, but Grizz could have him. Dare I say it, on their way to the line. It is a drag race, and Grizz takes it for 12th place. All the way to the line there. That is remarkable. That all shaped up in the span of one tiny little corner. See, on the exit there, he had a poor run. The 44 had him. Dead to rights. It was a drag race to the line. What a turnaround of fate after their last little spat between the 44 and the number 1. Shawnee Mack finishes in 14th. Jonathan Curran finishes net neutral in 15th position. Smiler in 16th. Dollar up in 17th. 1 DNF as expected by the number 6 of VSR Oatsy. That concludes round 6. So we are shortly onto the discussion. Did I say round 6? Round 3. We're shortly onto the discussion of round 4. Round 6. I mean, let's get a look at where that is. That's Valencia. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. That's quite away from now. 2 weeks, as a matter of fact. How time flies. So another victory on the charts for Boris. He'll be opening up that championship lead, not only in the overalls, but in the Platinum category as well. Now, getting a look back to where things were before this round, he already led by 14 points in that championship to Tommy. Tommy finishes now behind Fast Fanatical, so those two getting closer to one another than they are to Boris. Skino getting points on the charts there. So the only Platinum driver signed up at the moment we haven't yet seen points on the charts, or even an appearance from, was last season's gold champion, the number 54 of White Doctor, previously cited driving in his famous number 54 Aston Martin. And let's just see. So 6th place for Giles. And looking at it there, Cassie, 7th place. That is remarkable turnaround for Cassie. He's tried to neutralise a lot of that damage that has been done from his non-show at qualifying 1. Those two, before they went into this round, were level on points. That will since see Giles go up by a very thin margin to Cassie heading out to this round. So still yet the opportunity for these two to go back into dead neutral. That's if Cassie can finish 6th, Giles can finish 7th. But with another qualifying session yet to arrive, I don't think these two will be looking for any more tepid results. They're now fired up and ready to go. And as too are the remaining 17 cars on this grid. Perhaps we will yet still see an appearance from Otzi recovering from his DNF. That's not been grand for him. Looking at where things are for Silver, Twiglet in 11th, Grizz 12th. So Twiglet will continue to open the taps there on that lead. And then down in bronze as well, looking at it, Shawnee Mack actually finished ahead of Jonathan Curran. So again, same story. He'll be extending his lead in the bronze championship. Shawnee Mack, we saw, was quite a interesting story from last season. Didn't have the greatest of starts, but fought through thick and thin to put himself in several instances of driver of the day for the bronze category. And could this be his season to fight for a position in silver come season 10? Only time will tell. But it's been a very exciting round 3. We see one of our subs in chat there, K1 Jupiter, saying, I cast catastrophic rain shower. And that's not worked for you there, has it, really? Bright and sunny conditions as we hit qualifying 2. 10 minutes on the charts, and already we're back into a lively paddock. Heading out first onto the field, actually second onto the field, as he's been beaten to the punch there, once again by the 66 of Tommy. So I'll leave you on board here with the number 66. Finished in third last race by 0.3 of a second. Had he one more lap, he would have been able to fight with Fast Fanatical for a potential front row finish. So on his way down through Lucy and Bianchi box, we'll leave you on board with the 66. We'll be back in just a moment's time. So now, as we head into the first of our flying laps, we're still on board with the number 66 of Tommy as he makes his way out through turn 3 at Canal Box. You can see they're just getting around Regent in the number 420. He had a good comeback drive after everything that happened down at the Kleiner chicane between himself and the car actually right behind him on track at the moment, the number 9 of Indian Goat. You can see a little bit of interaction in chat there between K1 Jupiter and Skino. I must say, it has been a long time since we've seen Skino on track. It is quite a pleasure having met the bloke in real life. He is a stand-up chap, so it's good to see him back under the veil of motorsport. We did see a little bit of trouble, actually. Let's get a gander at this. There was a bit of a slow Sector 1 there report for... It was the 420 and I think the number 9, so a little bit of bad blood perhaps still lingering between Fast Fanatical and Indian Goat. Not Fast Fanatical, sorry. Indian Goat and Regent. Out through tournament. Oh boy, I mean, we've seen what Regent can do when he's angry. He's sort of the Incredible Hulk of this field here. You don't really want to make him angry, and I think that's the sentiment carried by Indian Go. He'd rather be out of the set of the action there than under the knife, under the gavel, as it were, of the 420. And with every reason. So let's get a look on those timing charts then. Tommy first, Giles second, Boris to third. So to kick off this session, we're already into the 130s on slightly hotter conditions than we had in qualifying 1. Tommy now leads the timing charts by just over 1/10 of a second. Giles in second. Boris on a less than ideal start, but we already know he's never just a one and done driver. He always has a combo here. He's got 1, 2 and 3 perhaps in his iron sights already. Fast Fanatical currently 4th, Blue Frog 5th, Jonathan Curran currently 6th. We'll see where that stacks up with the rest of the field. Cassie 75 thousandths of a second behind him for 7th. And VSR Chris in 8th, Twiglet 9th, and Oatsy in 10th, Antion in 11th as he crosses the line there. Next to the line, as we speak, will be the 88 of VSR Dollar Up. And I do quite like the relatively simplistic design on that number 88. I don't know why the maybe it's just the little swishes on the side. Now, I don't think it looks anything like it, actually, having thought about it. But it just reminds me of the, was it the Mach 5 or the Mach 6 from Speed Racer? Which one was the one that was live action? I think it was the Mach 6, wasn't it? The one where they just steered in every direction and no one could really tell what direction the car was meant to be pointing in. That film was great. It just reminds me of that for some reason. The front of it, less so. It reminds me more of God of War. So for Dollar Up, he's 13th at the end of his first flying lap. Looking back on that front row, Boris returns to command of the field there. Pole position, a 130.040. Now, dare I say it, could we be seeing a 129 in the next 5 minutes? It is definitely likely. You can see the margins for it have been defined by such a small gap here, infinitesimal in nature, to that move to a 129. And Tommy currently 2nd. That gap starting to narrow up inside the top 4. Cassie in 3rd. So we can now see what the 98 can do with all pistons firing. He's not missing a beat here of this qualifying session. Puts himself, as it stands, 5 thousandths of a second ahead of Fast Fanatical for the control of the front of that second row of the field. You can see further down the line, things very closely decided between 5th and 6th. ETE Giles currently 5th. The Blue Frog contending from 6th, looking for that top 5 start. Has to make, looking at it here, the maths add up to about 63 thousandths of a second, or 603 thousandths. You can see there a little bit of discussion in the chat whilst the session continues on. We'll quickly catch on board with Tommy here as he makes his way to the line, seeing that Skino has now took the opportunity during qualifying to sprint to the loo. He said probably one of the worst times to go to the loo. I'm probably going to be missing out on qualifying here. He's sprinting as though the paddock and Portaloo. Paddock to the Portaloo in quotation marks. Duke chimes in with unrealistic. There isn't a 3-mile queue, though there is a session going on. Yeah, that's a little too true. Having worked at a racetrack several times, a little too true. That one hits a little too close to home. One of the things I do not miss about being at a racetrack is it's just the sheer amount of waiting you've got to do on a daily basis. You want to use the toilet, okay, stand in 32-degree heat, direct sunlight, UV8, no sunscreen, and with a 50,000 man queue, and you're going to get sunstroke and die. That's probably how things go at most racing circuits. Maybe not so much at Zolder. It's a little bit smaller than the circuits I've been to, but I think it's all to the same, really. All of these circuits only got, like, what, 2 or 3 toilets, and that's it. So then next across the line, we saw the number 4 there, Shawnee Mack just across the line. Now comes VSR Antion from 15th on the field. Has to make quite a ways up here for a top 10 start ahead of Jonathan Curran. Makes 13th on his last lap just gone. Next to the line, the 57. So we'll be expecting big things here out of ETE Giles, though the map data does seem to show that he is invalidated. We'll see exactly if that's the truth. He's on his way out through Jackie Xbox at turn 10. On his trails there, the number 66 and the number 999, our current front row. Giles across the line didn't set an improvement time. Does Tommy, for that matter, as he gets across the line. It is dead heat there, I want to point out, between himself and Fast Fanatical, as Boris now opens it up into the first of our 129s in this round, in this set of rounds, I should say, here at Zolder, as we enter quali 2 for round 4. I want to point out, between Fast Fanatical and Tommy, these two drivers were separated by next to nothing during the race. They are literally separated by next to nothing in today's qualifying. Tommy currently finding himself the beneficiary as he's up to second, where Fast Fanatical, despite having set the same time, set it as the second of those 2 times for today, puts himself in 3rd and ahead of Elite Cassie, who crosses the line there, maintains 4th, and opens the gaps up to ETE Giles at the back of that top 5. So in the last couple of minutes here, I don't necessarily see anyone challenging Boris again, but I want to focus yet again on what's going on right behind him, as Tommy and Fanatical could not be closer if you tried. You could put a pin in between those 2 cars. If we were to take a look at those times, you would not be able to tell the difference with who finished 2nd and who finished 3rd. See Giles putting it to the side there, out of turn 7. Looking in with Fast Fanatical right behind him there is VSR Grizz, who fought all of his way to the line. Now, taking a look... Actually, we'll take a look at the end of this qualifying session because otherwise it will reset the timers. I've just realised that there. So we'll take a look in about a minute's time, just recounting that last lap dash by the 44. That was really quite something to bring us to the end of round 3. The 999, the number 66, and the number 52 all in tow there. Tommy brings it ever closer to the chances of pole position, but where he failed, could Fanatical succeed on his way out of turn 10? It's looked very strong so far out of the 52. Bear in mind, he's got one more lap left in the tank here before the end of quali today. Doesn't find an improvement this time around, nor does Boris for that matter. So the world's weight in qualifying currently rests on the 66's shoulders. .28 is next to the line, so let's just quickly catch on board if we can here with VSR Chris on his way to the line. Needs to find, by the looks of it, just over a tenth of a second for 7th place. He's still got one more in the tank here, I think, before the end of qualifying. Yes, he does, just very nearly inside of that margin for him at the end of quali 2. He's got one more lap left to play. Tommy brings it in then, so he'll be starting at the best of things on the front row. Same story for Fast Fanatical, and Elite Cassie also in the same boat there in 4th. That whole top 5 having resigned to the pit lane at the end of quali. The only among the top 10 still left in play here, the Blue Frog, VSR Chris and VSR Grizz being one of them, but most recently having been brought into the pits. So you're looking really at only Blue Frog and Chris as our last 2 Porsches in that top 10, still outsetting lap times. And Blue Frog brings that one in after a cut across Turleman. That leaves Chris basically as the sole representative of that top 10 of the next possible kind of moves for position. Out through Turleman we go. Now, looking at the margins between himself and 7th, we said before, it's just a 10th and a 1,000th being the gap between himself and Indian Goats number 9. So as he makes his way to Boulderberg Harshbelt box at turn 8, then to turn 9. The question therein remains is, can he find that seemingly small gap to put himself in 7th place, or is he looking at an 8th place start here? He makes his way down towards turn 10. He's given it absolutely everything here at the end of qualifying, but let's see if it will pay off for the 28 on his way to the line then at the end of quali 2 for the start of round 4 of VSR Phoenix Season 9. To the line, and he's not only up past 7th, but he's now all the way to a top 5 start, pushing Giles out of the top 5. And he did so by, let's get a look here, 9,000ths of a second. So what an end to qualifying for VSR Chris. What a turnaround, where we thought he was chasing 7th. He had much higher goals out of our realm of understanding. What an end to quali 2 then for the start of round 4. And rather unsurprisingly, Just Boris again on pole position, but more surprisingly, the first of our 129s on the chart there. 129.927, defying the odds for a time such as that. He really starts to live up to the claims by the rest of the paddock that he just something ain't regular. He ain't human compared to the rest of these lot. We are looking at alien levels of performance. Tommy in a very close second, mind you, so let's not count out the 66 here. If he's got the pace in qualifying, there's nothing to say he doesn't have the pace on race day. Fast Fanatical will start now behind the 66 and will have to try and make his way back up to where he finished round 3 in second. Cassie on a much better qualifying session. Of course, it's not hard to improve from not setting a time. And he almost swaps roles. In fact, perfectly swaps roles between himself and Skino. Skino started in 4th in that race, and now he starts in 18th because he went to the loo. So he's taking a gamble. Let's see if that pays off for him. And where we saw it ended up being quite a lively race for Elite Cassie when he started in 18th. Will it be the same story for Skino on what is currently his 2nd race of Season 9? Quite high expectations to perform there after how things turned out for him in round 3. So with 3 minutes before we go away onto our second and final formation lap of today's race broadcast day here in VSR Phoenix for the start of round 4 of the championship, let's recount the grid in order. Just Boris on another pole position, back-to-back then here in Zolder. We'll start from the front row. Tommy starts right alongside him in the 66, now up and ahead of Fast Fanatical, who's down to 3rd at the end of quali. Elite Cassie now starts in 4th in, as mentioned, a complete role reverse between himself and the 696 of Skino. We'll get more onto that in a second. VSR Chris in 5th and ETE Giles in 6th. The Blue Frog in 7th and Indian Goat in 8th. VSR Grizz in 9th. and Regent in 10th. So a 1-car gap between himself and Indian Goat. Perhaps that's the buffer zone we need here for neither of these two to find their way into trouble here in round 4. VSR Oatsy in 11th position ahead of Jonathan Curran, so a net improvement for the pair of them for the start of round 4. VSR Twiglet in 13th, VSR Anti on 14th, Shawnee Mac 15th, Dollar Up 16th, and then Smiler and Skino missing qualifying or not setting times there. The 696 starting from 18th, the 32 starting from 17th. So now, with a fresh understanding of what to expect on a race like this, will we see the mistakes of the past repeated for our drivers today? And what has definitely been a bit of a mix-up behind that front row, actually, I'd say even behind pole position, as we're seeing a completely reorganised 2nd through 4th there. So with about 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. Things are looking rather interesting for us this week. We did get approached rather recently by MSC to cover round 2 of season 2 of their GT3 series. So we'll be going live with them hopefully on, I think it's Friday at 8 PM BST for their qualifying and 90-minute race out of the Circuit Imola, the Autodromo Nazionale Enzo E. Dino Ferrari. And then we'll be missing out Saturday's broadcast window as we're on season break for the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship and HCCL GT4 Challenge. So we'll be coming to you next after those 2 broadcasts in the week for Sunday for round 7 of the NLRL Sunday League here in season 3. So nonetheless, we're back onto season 9 then of VSR Phoenix. Here in the Porsche Cup era, we've been 3 races in and we haven't been disappointed once. Now as we head on to the 4th and current final race today, let's see how things pan out on our 2nd run here around the Circuit Zolder. Taking us away then from pole position, 2 on the trot here in Zolder. I believe 4 overall in this championship so far is just Boris in the 999. We know that back during Season 7, Boris in his championship bout was capable of consecutive race wins in a row, much like what we've been seeing over the course of the start of Season 9. But taking a look back through Season 8's result in his more experimental era with Lamborghini, we saw that the most he was ever able to chain together was only 2 race wins in a row. That didn't stop him from going on to take several over the course of the championship, but the bulk of his championship was spent either in the shadow of or fighting with the 54 Aston Martin of White Doctor. That was definitely one of the more controversial championships we covered, and it ended up being a major fracture point for if Boris would ever stay in VSR Phoenix. Ultimately, he chose to come back and is now competing on better form than ever here in Season 9 at the dawn of an ambitious new era for VSR Phoenix. And when they approached me a few months ago during the production of Season 8 saying, look, we're going to be running Porsche Cups heading into Season 9, I was definitely a touch curious as to whether or not it would be anywhere near as successful as their already long-standing 8-season run in GT3. And really, I am pleasantly surprised to see that this change is not been met with such great hostility by the crowds of VSR's driver bases. Now, they've all really taken to the challenge in their own unique way, and they've took upon themselves this Herculean effort to learn this incredibly tough machine front to back here to give us some fantastic bouts of racing in the opening 3 rounds. So with round 4 quickly on the horizon here, could we be in for another treat here in Zolder? That'll definitely be the question lingering on our minds, and for the front row, it's really going to be a last-ditch dash there off of the line towards turn 1. As we've seen already, this race can be wrapped up in the opening half hour. Staying with Boris on his way to turn 8, just getting a look back through the field here, namely inside of that top 5. Now, this is VSR Chris's point of view. That last lap dash put him from 8th to 5th, where we thought he was gunning for 7th place. He was on much higher goals in qualifying just gone. He actually eyes up the rest of the field there. He's got a very clear line of sight of 4th, 3rd and 2nd, definitely within his chances to fight for a podium today. It's going to take quite a bit of chaos to force a wedge between the 66 and the 52, backing up behind the 999 on our screens there. We won't have much more time to think about how things can pan out between these guys, as heading out through turn 10, lining back up then. 9 cars either side of it here for round 4 of the championship, on another pole position then for Just Boris on his 3rd race win in a row. Can it be race win number 4? 30 minutes will tell us different then. Sorry, not wrapped up within the first 30 minutes, wrapped up within the first 15. That's neither here nor there now, as heading down towards the line for round 4 of the championship. We're green and racing for the last time here in Zolder for round 4 of the championship. Very quickly cutting off a charge then by the 66 was Just Boris. Very nearly got clipped up the back end by the 66. Tommy runs wide out through turn 1, taking up the slack. Then the 52 almost immediately up to second. They're side by side on their way through Störenwacht, and you can see up through Canal there was also contact in the background for VSR Chris. Very nearly got turned around there. Out through turn 4, Lucien Bianchi boxed. It's Boris from Tommy, Cassie and Fanatical down to 4th after trouble there through turns 3 and 4. VSR Chris now up past Fanatical. Something is clearly awry here. Cassie up to the podium, but has to cut the Kleiner chicane. You can see it's absolute bedlam in the background. Grizz going super wide to the left there. Drops several positions now out past Jonathan Curran in the number 15. And again, on the short end of the stick has been that number 6. Looking out through Tournament box, you can see a swarm of cars here charging through the turn 7 complex. Off in the background, that was, if I'm not mistaken, Shawnee Mack in trouble out through, not through Störenwacht, through Tournament. So there, off out past the 2nd or 3rd part of the Turleman section at turn 7. And now on board with the car in 2nd place. Tommy now 0.6 of a second from Boris. He's got no one pressuring him for position from behind. He's got a clear gap between himself and Elite Cassie down in 3rd. He's just got the opportunity here to charge up to the mantle of the 999. So we'll leave them two to it as we take a look around the field. Things still getting into arms for position around the paddock. We get a look here. You can see Fast Fanatical chasing VSR Chris. We're watching with the Blue Frog. He's got very clear view of that fight for 4th place. Right behind him, though, closing in and closing in fast is ETE Giles and Regent. Indian Goat down to 12. Could be looking at a loss here for 13th, as right up his back end there was VSR Twiglet, almost pushing him through Lucien Bianchi box at turn 4. Then he himself is trying for side-by-side on VSR Antion. He needs to stop trying to get 2 abreast in through turn 5. It's just not possible. He's got clear line of sight as well. Just taking a look up the field. Jonathan Curran v Skino. Skino actually trying for the inside, and does he nail that move? We couldn't see it as we were eclipsed there by the number 1, but he has. Dare I say it, Skino has defied the impossible, and now he's got a routine basis of doing this to us now here on TRTN. We said in the last time we saw Skino, and this was as we stay on board here with Indian Goat, eyeing up the inside here on VSR Antion at Boulderberg Harspelbocht. Can he make that one stick through turn 9? He'll be to the outside at the start of that chicane, then to the outside on his way to the Jackie Xbox. It could be back to the inside here for Antion as he staves off the number 9. First to the outside, then to the inside. He's played the long game for that one. Indian Goat up to 12th. So quickly back onto that subject as we try and catch on board with the next fight on track. Currently looking at that fight for 4th. We're watching on board the defending point of view here. VSR Chris in a world of his own here, trying to hold off Fast Fanatical, the Blue Frog, and ETE Giles and Region. A whole army here mounting at his rear quarter as we see up the inside, and like clockwork there, Fast Fanatical up into 4. So now we're looking, for the sake of Chris here, we're looking at that fight for 5th, and you can see that could be wrapped up before we have time to speak of it. Side by side between himself and the Blue Frog. The Blue Frog backs off there earlier onto the brakes, allows Chris to run the racing line in through turn 5. Bear in mind that behind him there, the magenta number 57, that's ETE Giles in hot pursuit of these two down towards the Turleman box section. We saw Skino get side by side up through this section before on Jonathan Curran. Doesn't see anything akin to that action amongst these 4. So just quickly back onto that. The last time we saw Skino was all the way back during the Imola round of the Console Endurance Series, in fact the inaugural round of the Console Endurance Series over on NLRL, and where we said the Aqua Minerale was functionally suicide to go side by side through. Lo and behold, after the race concluded, I got a clip sent to my sent to my DMs there from Skino of him doing very much so exactly what I said was functionally suicide, and here's the catch: living. So he's got a track record of defying impossible odds here, so we'll see what he can do. He started 18th. Right now, he's actually not too far away from the fight on screen at the moment. He's actually hanging out past VSR Grizz. They're inside the top 10. We see side-by-side and contact between the Blue Frog and Chris. That dominoes into Giles, but doesn't take the 57 out. That's gotten ugly there, down through turn 1. So we could see here, trying for position, jockeying for it. Up the inside he goes. Realizes all too late that there wasn't enough room for it. Slingshots the 28. That has gone horribly wrong for VSR Chris. And now he's back into the pits because he ran into even further complications on the exit of, I believe looking at it there, was Störenwacht, if I'm not mistaken. See, running out across the chicane, so there are yellow flags, cautions out there. The 44 had to run across the Kleiner chicane. That was VSR Grizz, now drops out behind Skino. ETE Giles right up his rear on his way to Turleman. Back into green flag conditions for the time being. 24 minutes left to go. It has been quite a hair-raising opening 5 minutes by contrast to what we saw in round 3. Looking in after 6 minutes of racing, just Boris leads. Tommy's in second, Cassie's in third, Fast Fanatical down to 4th, Regent up to 5th, Blue Frog in 6th, Skino up to 7th, so he's up 11 positions from the race start. Grizz in 8th, Giles 9th right behind him, and Jonathan Kieran there. You can see that golden number 15 in the top 10, but for how much longer? Because up the inside here comes the number 9 of Indian Goat. Can he make this one stick out through the start of turn 10? Then on the exit of turn 10, a big bounce with the 15 there, all but solidifies a move to the top 10 for the number 9. So that puts Kieran down a peg there to 11th, could be down to 12th in a moment, because here comes VSR Twiglet, following on from the calamity earlier of the number 15. He saws his way up the inside at Ernst's corner. That's not gone well for Kieran. He's lost 2 positions in the span of 2 corners. What will he be able to do then in the next 23.5 minutes to make up for that loss? Well, we'll stay quickly on board with these two, as he's got the better of 2 lines there out through Störenwacht, puts him to the inside. Lucy Bianchi, it's contact between himself and Twiglet. Twiglet's a passenger to the wall, and that has gone horribly wrong for the 96. Let's get a look at that. Now, we saw there was already trouble on the exit of Canal. We saw the 96 run all the way to the left-hand side. He was trying to rejoin, and you can see he was actually not in too far the way of it. What has gone on there? That's not looking good for the 15. Oh, dear. That is not looking grand for him there. Let's get a look at that for the second time before we catch back on with our drivers. Just take a look over to our second monitor. So he was never once all the way off the track, but you can see the 15 has just drifted across his nose. It almost looked like he bumped him off the track there. Something was awry for the 15. He just wasn't paying attention. So now we're back on board with our drivers inside the top 10. Grizz has got a clear line of sight of a fight going on up ahead of him. That's between Skino and Blue Frog. Let's, as a matter of fact, get on board with those two as they make their way out through the Jackie Xbox at turn 10 to start lap 5 of this race with 22 minutes left to go. 8 minutes in, and there has not been quiet here in Zolder. Now as we're on board with Skino, and must I say, if you need any further evidence as to why this driver was placed into the Platinum category, take a gander here, because he's up 12 positions from race start, right now gunning at a potential look of a top 5 with the Blue Frog in his way at the moment. He's in that fight for 5th place. We'll stay on board with the 696 as this has been one of the most compelling drives of round 4 so far. So out through the Kleiner chicane, you can see so much rebound there on the suspension of the 696. In the background, you can see the fight between Grizz, Giles, and Indian Goat. We'll check in on that for just a moment here, if we can at least. Quickly see here a fight between Twiglet and Dollar Up, but let's see if we can catch on board with Grizz. Indian Goat now getting up and ahead of Giles. So those two jockeying for position right now. We want to try and keep equal stead here of the fight going on for 5th and the fight going on right now at the back of that top 10, as both of them are equally as lively. You can in fact see one from the other with how close they are. Indian Goat's really got his hands full here in this race. You can't take that off of him. Despite that incident on round 3, you can't fault the man's tenacity for wanting to get head first into some good fights here in Zolder. He's got the commitment for it. He's maybe at times a little too eager for his own good, but really you can't fault that quality in a driver, so long as they're able to rake in what battles they choose to fight and what battles they choose to let play out in front of them. It's a very Grand Prix-esque mentality. It does remind me of the very early days of when I was commentating for online leagues in F1. And we see drivers get very elbows out, very into it very quickly. Despite there being plenty of time left in the race, he's not wasting any of it. Every minute counts here for the number 9, and it's quite a fresh mindset to see here amongst the more methodical crowd we've come to be used to here in VSR Phoenix. We will catch up with these three in a moment's time because we want to see what the state of affairs is. Skino goes up and ahead as Blue Frog forfeits in through turn 5 at the Kleiner chicane. So Skino up to 5th, Blue Frog down to 6th, Regent right on his tail. We'll catch up with those two in a moment's time here as we want to try and get a look back on board. A fight of the 3 here. Now on board with the leading car, VSR Grizz, and up the inside, tried for it there, but couldn't make it stick as Grizz goes bouncing and sliding across turn 7. Was Indian Goat. He's really getting inside his head here. That is one of the most frightening things to see in your rear view mirror right now, is that royal purple, almost plum crazy purple Porsche, the number 9 of Indian Goat, competing from the gold category. Right up ahead there is Regent. Regent has fallen behind massively after a spat there at turn 9 from the Blue Frog and Skino. Those two separated by just shy of half a second as they make their way through Jackie Xbox. We're watching here with Grizz. And moreover, we'll watch on board with the car attacking Grizz for control of 8th position on the track right now. We're on board with Indian Goat in the number 9. On that last lap was just shy of 2 tenths faster. He was about 1/10 and 200ths thereabouts. That's a very rough approximation of things, but the point being he is faster on that last lap. He's got the drive to get up and ahead of the 44. Now he needs to pick the opportunity here because there are very few of them on a track like Zolder. Very quickly can you find yourself the centre of quite a bit of controversy if you try for a move in the wrong place. Now out through turn 4, he's just backed off a little bit to give himself a bit more space to play with it. Out through turn 4, bear in mind he's now formed quite a nice gap there to ETE Giles. And both of these drivers have been pushed up against the back end of Regent, and down through turn 5 it's a bump and run, and into the wall goes the 44. That's gone nuclear. Regent very nearly collected as well by Indian Goat, but here comes ETE Giles. My word, he's up the inside at turn 6. Is he going to try this around the outside at turn 7? He is. What a turnaround for him there. He's up not 1, not 2, but 3 positions in the span of 2 corners. Brilliant. Regent and Indian Goat reunited on track then. How does this one play out? Heading down into Boulderberg-Harschbelpocht. The 420 leaps for the inside on the number 9. Could it be contact? Out through Boulderberg-Harschbelpocht it is. And it again sends Regent to the wall. Here comes Antion now to take advantage of the chicanery going on up ahead of him. The number 1 alongside the number 9. Down into turn 10 we go. I must say, that might be one of the greatest turnarounds I've seen in motor racing there. What ETE Giles has been able to do there, some of you who've watched the film Cars, it's much reminding me of the opening scene there of him navigating all of the crashed vehicles in front of him. He found the perfect line amongst a sea of wreckages to find his way there to 6th place. That is one of the greatest reflexes I've ever seen. I don't try and short sell it there, ladies and gents. That was brilliant. It's not gone particularly well, I'll say this, for Regent. He's now in the pit lane, servicing quite major damages, and there we've just seen him drop away. So the 420 is out of round 4 of the championship. Regent will not be happy. A huge leap there by the 57. Do be careful now. He's gained the position. Let's not try and take the suspension with it. That really did take some serious guts there for ETE Giles to do what he just did. Regent asking, was that Indian Goat pushing Grizz into me? I think it was. So looking back through that incident, I think it was a case that it was one into the other. So as a matter of fact, he bumped into you, then slowed down, and then Indian Goat bumped into him, and he maybe bumped into you again. So it did start off as just him, and then he also got involved. There was a bit of a, how do you say, a Newton's cradle effect going on there. If, you know, you drop one ball on the side of the Newton's cradle, it bounces the other. Tommy got disconnected there, so we do have news up from the front row as now Elite Cassie up to second, gunning for one of his joint best results this season. Now taking a look at those previous results from last season here to try and see if we can scoop up anything for Elite Cassie. He's gone an entire season without a win. I believe since his debut back in Season 7, he missed out on his opportunity, but we know Elite Cassie, real name Cass van Veltzen, of which we've seen his talents over on NLRL and several other leagues. We know he's race-winning material. We know on a good day he is race-winning material, so we're seeing the slow build here to him being side by side one of these days with the race leader at the moment, because right now Just Boris's performance has been unparalleled. He has been able to just carve his way away up the field, no problems, hair blowing in the wind, roof down, what have you. He may as well turn that 992 into a speedster. He is having such a relaxed drive at this stage of the championship. You couldn't bother him if you tried. 14 minutes left to go. We've just passed the halfway mark of this race, and he leads now by quite a margin there. Cassie now up to second, much to the chagrin of Tommy, who has now suffered a disconnect to bring our tally down to 15 drivers. Fast Fanatical in third, Skino up to fourth then, so that's a great promotion for him. For Blue Frog, he's not going to be feeling too much of the burn as he's back up to where he started all of this in fifth place. Giles on that lightning send through. I really don't know how to describe that in accurate words there, but that was really quite something to push him back up into the fight here to sixth place. Indian Goat in seventh, Grizz in eighth. Right behind him comes Antion for the inside there, backs off of it. He won't be making that mistake again. Jonathan Curran right behind the pair of them for a triad of very colourful Porsches on their way down through turns 2 and 3. Regent saying, and let me guess, he did nothing wrong. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I'm not a steward, so I can't really tell you. But yeah, I would say everyone's getting a little too close down in the Kleiner. There's definitely going to be that investigation. Would I necessarily say that it was strictly Indian Goat's fault? Watching from his point of view, bear in mind, he was looking at both you and Grizz. It was a case where all of them were just getting too close. It was started by Grizz and it was finished by Indian Goat. So if that's the answer you want, that's the answer you get. I'm not a steward. They'll be able to pick this apart. That's their job. My job is to bring you these broadcasts, and I understand my position very nicely. Looking in the background, then we can see Grizz and Antion getting closer and closer to one another here for the control of 8th position. They're now 0.3 of a second apart from one another. Still right behind them then is Jonathan Curran. I mean, I'm speaking at least on the incident from turn 5. If there was another incident thereafter, then I've got nothing to comment there because we were watching with Giles. If there was another incident entirely, which would probably reinforce the fact that 420 came into the pits and retired, I'd probably say, yeah, that's the steward's job. But we saw what happened at turn 5 when we were following with Giles thereafter. So if something else did happen, apologies on not being able to cover that. So then let's stay on board with these drivers here. We quickly checked in there with the race leader. Now in second place, Elite Cassie. Blue Frog and Skino could be getting into it in a moment's time as they have actually swapped positions here. Skino now back at the back of the top 5. Bouncing out through turn 7 there. Blue Frog has definitely got this section of the track nailed in now. The 61 up to 4th now leads by 1.1 seconds to 5th place. So we'll catch up with those two in a moment's time. Let's take a look though with Grizz and Antion, the two colourful Porsches here in 8th and 9th. There's something very aesthetically pleasing and something that tickles my brain about the colours of those cars. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe just the fact that I'm a bit simple off stream and I like bright, pretty colours. I'm very easily entertained, as it turns out. Out through turn 9 goes the 44 from the number 1. The number 15 is getting closer, so let's not entirely rule out Jonathan Curran from this fight for 8th position at the moment. Just quickly tabbing back in on what's going on in 4th as that enters its 12th lap now. 11.5 minutes just under left to go as they make their way out through turn 1. Skino's got the better of 2 exits there through turn 1, then to turn 2. You see sliding his way into the apex, then powering out. Really having to drive the brakes off that number 61. Blue Frog has not got this tucked in easy. We're on board with him at the moment. He's currently fending off for 4th position.
a little lost for words there. That was just, it was poetry in motion there between the 61 and the 696. We'll catch up with those two in a moment's time. Let's take a look back in, as now things have definitely divided up a little bit more between the 44 and the number 1. The number 1 actually now backed onto the 15, so Antion could be fighting for 9th there, defending it from the advancing Jonathan Curran at the back of the top 10s. That'll be one to talk about. Coming into the pits then is Shawnee Mack with significant damage on the 4. That could be the end of his race today here from 15th. Looking around that field, Antion still in pursuit of Grizz. You can see hanging around there just over the spoiler, about 4 to 5 car lengths away is the number 15. Down towards turn 10 we go. Bear in mind the discrepancy in his name there, VSR Antion to Ice Antion, and yes, I am aware of the fact that it's not actually Antion, and I've been using the Xbox 360 rules of replacing vowels with numbers. I know that it's supposed to be pronounced Antoine, but then let me riddle you this. His real name's Antonio. So how the hell have we arrived at Antoine? I don't know. He's Antion in my books, and he seems to have taken that name quite nicely, so we're going to continue to call him that until he protests. Out through turn 4 then goes the number 1. Now back in on closing distance there to the 44. So we could be seeing the makings here of a revival to that fight of 8th position between Grizz and Antion on their way through turn 6. Just under 9 minutes to go then as we're in amongst the closing laps of round 4. Things have definitely simmered down a tad since the more explosive middle chapter of round 4 today. I think it's definitely a tough act to follow for quite a few drivers on track to even pick up from the kind of cinematic action we experienced there on the exit of turn 5. It's definitely left a bad taste in quite a few drivers' mouths, and really with every right to be honest. If I were in Regent's position, I would be rightfully quite angry. So his anger is not unjustified. It is not unjustified. He has been really screwed over there in turn 5 twice, as a matter of fact, today. And neither of which was deliberately his doing. He's been the victim of fate and of other drivers' wrongdoings twice in a row there. That's enough to turn any man insane. So his resilience, if he comes back in around 5, that's impeccable. In my books, I would not have the fortitude to be putting up with that. The number 4, Shawnee Mack, slows down out through turn 3 and 4, imminently awaiting then the arrival of these 3, still in contention for 8th place on their exit of Canal. We'll catch up with these 3 in just a moment's time here. So we want to check back in. Skino returns to 4th, so Blue Frog now to 5th. That podium remains the same as the last time we checked it. Boris from Cassie from Fanatical. That has got a really sting for Tommy. He said he was on for his best race this season. I would like to say his best race of this season so far. Let's remain optimistic in the face of the fact that last season he was actually able to pick up sprint race wins, and he did twice in a row there for Valencia last season. So there's still the opportunity. I mean, looking at that calendar, we are heading to Valencia for round 6 of the championship. So let's not rule it out, perhaps. Let's try and keep a bit of a smile there, turn the frown upside down, and so on and so forth. The number 15 then we're on board with now as he gains closer and closer advantage to the car in 9th. He is getting closer and closer to his opportunity for a fight of position, but 7 minutes. Oh, we spoke too soon. Commentator's curse there. Did say it was real, as now into the wall after a bit of a bump there. The 15 drops 2.5 seconds. Jonathan Curran runs into a spot of bother on the exit of turn 9 at the Jochen Rindt box. Inspecting that fight for Skino v Blue Frog, nothing to report at the moment, but we will check in on another fight happening right behind them. That's Giles v Indian Goat, just about under a second between the 57 and the number 9. Now that could get into arms. We've seen what these two are capable of, and we've seen what kind of madness is capable of when you put these two in the same confined space. So let's see how this plays out with 6 minutes on the clock here in Zolder for the last round of 2 today. A big bounce there. Oh my word. Blue Frog doing his best impression of a lowrider on his exit at the Kleiner chicane. Just get a gander at that. That is insane rebound we saw there from the 61. Just as we cut across. So the 61 up through turn 5 right about now. Jumps over both of those sausage curbs, and just the amount of bounces there. How he's able to keep the car facing straight after that, I really don't know. Remarkable car control. And what it's actually done for ETE Giles is it has brought the Blue Frog ever closer. That gap now larger between himself and Skino than it is between himself and Giles. So there could be the suggestion in the next 5.5 minutes today of a fight for a top 5 here for Giles. He has definitely seen it through to the very bitter end of things, and he's been a real trooper over the course of this race. They're surfing some of that madness going on behind him. We thought he was towards the back of the top 10. He would have been down and out for today's round to try and pick up another solid result, but he's really proven us, and as a matter of fact, his contemporaries on the paddock, completely wrong. Really on quite a mission here, but he's going to be, by the looks of things, with Cassie up in second, that gap is only going to continue to open up for Cassie to be in the lead of the Gold Championship come round 5, sorry, when we head to Schuyler County at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Now on the exit of turn 4, he's getting closer and closer to Indian Goat, so something clearly awry now over the rear axle of the number 57. He just cannot seem to find the grip he had at the start of this race. That car now fighting him back more and more as he tries to claw to even within a few tenths of an additional advantage to the car up in 5th. Down to turn 7 we go then. Now we are definitely looking here at the suggestion of a fight for 6th. In the defending point of view then would be Giles. If we catch on board with the attacking point of view, we quickly see here Smiler and Twiglet were very close to one another at one point. Blue Frog currently in 5th, but we're going to get on board with the car attacking for an opportunity at 6th place, and that's Indian Goat. Out through turn 9, and we saw Jonathan Curran run into a spot bother at this section of the track just a few laps ago. 4 minutes left to go here in Zolder. Down to turn 10. In that last lap, ever so slightly faster. That's by a factor of 7 thousandths of a second in the last lap just gone. So the margins so unimaginably thin between the pair at this late stage of the race. A big slide by the 57 out through turn 2, then to turn 3 at Canal. That could have gone very, very far south for him there. He's done very well to keep a good lid on that car there. Great car control on display by the 57. Currently one of the nearest fights on track at the moment then, this for 6th place. Could be, if they can both get a wriggle on towards the Blue Frog, could be looking at a fight for 5th. Right now the 61 just playing for the long game here, only has a few more laps on track for a top 5 finish. That'll be 2 top 5 finishes if memory serves correctly for the 61. So a very solid tow of points coming out of rounds 3 and 4 if he can just hold his nerve for the next couple of laps here. I hope these two spill over one another in their efforts to get around for 6th place. Giles in the defending position, Indian Goat in the attacking position. They're on the exit of Boulderberg Harshbelbocht at turn 8, then to turn 9 at the Jochenrindbocht. Down towards turn 10, and that was very nearly something that he's a little too well known for now, of him going very late on the brakes down into these follow-through sections and hitting the driver up the back end. He's starting to get a bit of a reputation for that. He is it's not looking grand. It's really not looking grand for the number 9. The problem being now he's stuck up against a driver who knows a thing or two about how to defend, but I think the first challenge of many for him is trying to make sure he can keep the car in the clear and narrow, because you can see more so than ever, after everything said and done, the 57 is really struggling to keep that car in a straight line. He's sliding out of a good half of those corners. And further up the road, the Blue Frog actually much closer now to Skino, so we'll cut away from the fight of 6th here as we try and locate one of 2 in that fight for 4th. Just quickly seeing here as Dollar is lapped by the leading car of Just Boris. Let's get on board with Skino. And just as I say that, we get into what looks to be the axis point of the fight between Giles and Indian Goat. We can see actually very nicely from the view here of the Blue Frog, as he's 0.6 of a second from Skino. So 2 battles could yet become 1 here in Zolder. 0.7 a second between the 57 and the number 9 behind them. Very hard to keep track of 2 battles at the same time, so it turns out. Out through turn 9, the leader on the final laps will be catching on board with Just Boris in a moment's time. Right now, the talk of the day are these 2 battles happening in near unison. We check in here with Indian Goat, looking for the inside on ETE Giles. Now has 1 more lap here at Zolder to make a possible lunge for 6th. Only 1 more opportunity therein 40 seconds left to go, so we are definitely now on those final laps. As mentioned before there by Race Control, we are on the final lap of today's race for round 4 of the championship. It's now or never for the number 9. It has to be 100% or 0. On his way into turn 2, he notices more and more now through this first sector how vulnerable the 57 is, how hard Giles is having to push that Porsche into play here. Looking in front of him, 0.5 of a second between Skino and the Blue Frog. Now, as we see here with Indian Goat, this is his best opportunity to try for a move he knows all too well about now. In towards the Kleiner chicane. Is he going to go for it? Yes, he is. Up the inside at the Kleiner chicane. And as predicted there, it's contact between the pair of them. Once again, this man is finding in the centre of quite a nasty bit of attention here. More so negative than positive amongst the paddock. Further up the field, we can see things start to kick off between Skino and the Blue Frog. We will have to cut away from them though, as getting to the line here, Just Boris 2 for 2 in Zolder, gets to the checkered flag, wins round 4 of VSR Phoenix Season 9. That's 4 in a row now for the Platinum Talent, Season 7's champion, gunning for one more perhaps. And that's another win for Just Boris. Cassie to the line in for second place. Fast Fanatical to the line for another podium appearance. Let's see how it plays out for the positions remaining in that top 10, as we saw 2 fights in parallel, but only those 2 battles can be won by one of those 2 drivers. To the line, Skino wins the battle for 4th. Indian Goat to the line wins the fight for 6th, but quite controversially there will definitely be words from the stewards on that bump and run against Giles. Some could make the argument there's never really the space there in through turn 5. You're asking for trouble, and he's certainly come looking for it there. 6th place at the end of today's race. Giles 7th. Grizz in 8th, slamming it to the line there. That's frustration by Grizz. Antion to the line in 9th. Curran in the top 10. VSR Otzi on his way to the line. A turnaround then after a DNF in race 3. Makes 11th in race 4. Twiglet on his way to the line with quite significant damage there. Is 2.5 seconds up the road from Smiler. On his way to the line will make, by the looks of it, 12th position in today's race. The end of round 4 then has definitely been quite the controversial dual set of races here in Zolder. Twiglet to the line for 12th. Smiler for 13th. Then Dollar up for 14th. Shawnee Mac for 15th position. Regent, Tommy and Chris all DNFs. So that has certainly been quite a lot to take apart here in the last 2 rounds just covered today here in Zolder, and the bottom line of which, double wins on the trot for Just Boris. Winning in the gold category then for the end of round 4 appears to be Elite Cassie in the number 98. Now, there could definitely be the considerations by the end of this season of an early promotion up to Platinum. Not that he'd want one, because he feels like he could definitely fight for a division championship right here and now. Leading the charge, now taking a look amongst the silver drivers here, I want to try and pick out one name from the list, and one that stands out to me, I think there is Grizz, who wins the silver category. Then for the bronze drivers, it's Dollar Up winning here in round 4. Actually, no, that's a mistake. They're Curran, because he's misidentified with a grey label there. No, it was Curran winning in bronze and not Dollar Up. He does, though, finish on a bronze podium with Shawnee Mac. Unless, I want to take a look here, because I'm gunning off of those colours there, and I know they're wrong. I just know they're wrong. Looking at your silver standings. So yeah, Smiler is a silver. Okay, we got that much correct. Well, it's been definitely a lot to pick apart for us here on TRTN. Hopefully you enjoyed the broadcast as much as we enjoyed recording it, and it has definitely been a very exciting dual set of races, and not without quite a lot of drama and controversy there. The stewards will have their hands full. Unfortunately, I'm not on the stewards team, so I don't have to worry about that. So that's all from us here on TRTN. If you're joining us for the next race here in VSR Phoenix, you'll be joining us for round 5 at the first of our 60-minute races at the Watkins Glen International Circuit on the 17th of September, same time as today at 7:30 p.m. BST. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Very well done then to Just Boris. A double race win then to bring even further domination to his stead of Season 9's championship. Is he gunning for a second? This is a pretty clear sign of it. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Good night.